And what would the top 10 worst movies of 2020 video be without the opposite? The top 20 best films of that year. Why a top 10, you may ask? Well, there were just so many good movies that year that I just had to talk about. Which is very ironic, seeing that even with all the delays going on, I still ended up seeing more movies than I ever thought I'd review. And like with the worst video, this isn't an official greatest cinematic experience to ever come out of this mediocre year. These are just my opinions. And these aren't reviews of these movies either. If you want those, link to my friend's podcast in my letterbox below. Now before we get to the official list, I'm gonna quickly go through some honorable mentions, otherwise known as the movies I'd given a 7 out of 10 or higher. The Witches, Mulan, Wonder Woman 1984, Bill and Ted Face the Music, The Old Guard, Extraction, Project Power, The Willoughbys, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, One Night in Miami, The Way Back, Let 'Em Go, The Climb, Sonic the Hedgehog, Birds of Prey, Freaky, Pieces of a Woman, and the one that just missed it, The Five Bloods. So with that out of the way, let's get right down to number 20. Starting out this list is Kajillionaire. This is a weird movie to say the least, but so good. While this may not be everyone's cup of tea, those who have the faintest interest of this refreshingly unique take on a romance should seek this one out when they can. Next up is On the Rocks. After Lost in Translation, Sofia Coppola and Bill Murray would team to give us a real and entertaining father-daughter take in one of her best written screenplays and one of his best performances. Might also be Apple TV's best film by far. Yeah, I said it. Now, I haven't seen any of Judd Apatow's movies, but seeing The King of Staten Island got me excited to see more. This might be the most relatable movie I've seen all year. Seeing this guy trying to get his life together after so much time of going nowhere. It's a film about making a name for yourself. What else can I say? And speaking of movies that got me excited to see more from its director, next on this list is The Gentleman. This has got to be one of the most entertaining movies this year, from its all-star cast giving their way dialogue, to the editing, to the soundtrack, and it goes to show that Guy Ritchie has still got it after that polarizing Aladdin remake. Anthony Hopkins' performance as the father is another major highlight this year. While nothing will ever top his take as Hannibal Lecter, seeing this guy struggling through dementia and aging is surely an experience to behold. And continuing this list is one of the biggest surprises this year, Bad Boys for Life. After a mediocre first movie and a decent, albeit flawed second, this third movie blossomed right out of the water with its action sequences, the improving chemistry between Will and Martin, and the surprisingly heartfelt storyline about retirement and family. We may not have asked for this sequel, but we're so glad we got it. And before Blumhouse cursed our eyes with Fantasy Islands, they gave us Lee Whannell's reboot of The Invisible Man. This movie proves that, yeah, Universal, you can make a monster movie without pandering to a potential cinematic universe. Great visuals, great style, great performance by Iblis Batmas, who won't get any recognition at the Oscars. But hey, what can you do? Now, I know The Hunt isn't really a movie for everybody, but I was one of the ones who really dug it. Taking this most dangerous game concept and flipping it over his head with its social commentary is a risky move, but it sure as hell paid off. For me, at least. And at a time when people seem to say westerns are dead, Paul Greengrass proved them wrong with News of the World. I love his style, I love his presentation, I love the chemistry between Tom Hanks and newcomer Helena Zengel, and it was one hell of a way to cap up the year. Next is this generation's Ad Astra in terms of how underrated it is, The Midnight Sky. Like with The Hunt, this movie pretty much got polarizing reviews from critics and audiences alike, but for me, I just can't resist how visually stunning this visually stunning sci-fi gem from Netflix. Great acting, great music, just great everything. So in the middle of this pandemic, Borat's subsequent movie film pretty much came out of nowhere. From what I hear, this was always meant to be. In fact, a lot has been shot prior to COVID's inception, but once it hit Earth, the filmmakers must have been like, Maybe we can incorporate it into the script. Maybe we can make this the comic relief America needs at this difficult time. And it was. The past few years gave us some compelling foreign films about family. 2018 had Roma, 2019 had the groundbreaking Parasite, and now 2020 has Minori. And like those two movies, this movie deals with compelling themes, gave us some luscious cinematography, and brought some great actors into the spotlight. So good job, guys. Good job. Next, we got the love letter to one of the greatest movies of all time, Citizen Kane, in David Fincher's Mank. This movie really takes you back to the 30s, from its production value to its music to even the sound editing. Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried delivered two of the best performances of the year, and they should seriously get some Oscars to do it. Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried delivered some. Both Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried delivered two of the best performances of the year, and they should get some serious Oscar consideration for sure. Number 7 is, ironically, The Trial of the Chicago 7. I think this is the movie that we need right now, especially considering the whole BLM movement. Aaron Sorkin has already proved himself as one of the best writers working today, and after this and Molly's Game, I'm happy to see what he does next in the director's chair. And after Unplanned butchered the themes of abortion for everyone, I thought that there was nowhere to go but up for these movies. So, thanks for putting me right, never rarely, sometimes always. Thanks. This is basically about the hardships of a young woman's choice, told in a realistic and subtle way, with Sidney Flanagan giving it her all to an Oscar nomination, hopefully. And speaking of Oscar nods, Carey Mulligan may have been snubbed for shame, but she might as well bring home Best Actress for Promising Young Woman. Talk about a stylish revenge thriller. Emerald Fennell gives it her all with a superb direction, stellar cinematography and soundtrack, and great writing, all leading up to an ending that will just leave you speechless. Number 4 is a movie that I never thought would just miss the top 3, probably because 2 of the 3 movies after this I just heard about late last year. But that doesn't mean that Tenet is still not damn good though. Christopher Nolan's always been this experimental, trippy filmmaker, so him taking on a kinda, sorta time travel is the perfect thing for him. Some of the best music of the year, some of the best action of the year, which makes it really sad that it bombed as high as it did. Now these next 3 movies could pretty much tie as number 1 of the year. They're that good. But it's gotta be in some sort of order for the sake of this list, so there can be only one champion of 2020. And the losers are... 2020 was a pretty disappointing year in animation, but so saved it from total mediocrity. Yep, after Onward was Trolls World Tour was disappointing, and Scoop and Sponge on the Run were total sockets, Pete Docter swooped in and gave us an animated masterpiece which was funny, heartfelt, and thought-provoking. And Pete, if this is your last movie as you say it might be, you sure ended your career with a bang, good sir. We all love a good road trip movie, right? Well, here comes one of those movies that just so happens to be the runner-up on this list, Nomadland. I mean, how can I not put it this high? I've heard nothing but praise for this movie, which could mean one of two things. Either A, it lives up to the hype tenfold, or B, it's just another hyped Oscar bait film. Thankfully, this was the former. Frances McDormand traveling the country to find her true calling, interacting with all these realistic characters, all through stunning cinematography. And if Chloe Zhao does win an Oscar for this movie, that would make me more excited for the Eternals than I already am. There are a lot of good movies this year. There are a few great movies this year. There may have even been masterpieces. But there was one movie that spoke to me. One movie that completely floored me and left me speechless during the end credits. It is this year's answer to Whiplash, and it is Sound of Metal. No other movie this year has left me this astonished. And what could it be, you might ask? Could it be Riz Ahmed's Oscar-worthy performance as a drummer forced to leave his lifelong dream? Could it be that we're with him losing his hearing through the stellar sound editing? Could it be Darius Marder's excellent direction? Could it be the ending that makes you think long after it plays out? Could it be all the above? Regardless, Sound of Metal is a movie that absolutely everyone should see, and it is my all-time favorite movie of 2020. So there you have it, the top 10 worst and the top 20 best movies of 2020 to cap up that mediocre year. Luckily, this year will be better in terms of movies, right? Right?